Space Stations and Habitats, Life Beyond Earth. Written and published by Ciro Irmici. Feel free to subscribe for more content. Now let's get into the book. Introduction: A New Frontier for Humanity. For centuries, humans have gazed at the stars, dreaming of what lies beyond our planet. We've imagined worlds, adventures, and even life outside of Earth, but for most of human history, these dreams remained grounded by the limitations of our technology and understanding. However, the 20th and 21st centuries have brought us closer than ever to making those dreams a reality. With the advent of space stations and the possibilities they open for human life in space, we now stand on the brink of a new chapter in our species' journey. Space stations, floating laboratories and habitats orbiting Earth, have become our first step into the vast unknown. Starting with early prototypes like Skylab to the monumental success of the International Space Station (ISS), we have learned more than ever before about living and working beyond our planet's atmosphere. These stations are not just isolated outposts. They are stepping stones toward permanent habitats on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. They represent humanity's first real attempt to become a species that thrives off-planet. In this book, we will explore the history, science, and future of space stations and habitats. We'll look at how these remarkable structures are designed, how astronauts live and work in them, and what it takes to sustain life in such extreme environments. We'll also dive into the exciting future ahead, when space stations will expand from being scientific laboratories to commercial hubs and even destinations for space tourism. But as thrilling as the future may sound, we'll also confront the challenges, technical, ethical, and environmental, that stand in the way of our continued expansion into space. Can we truly create self-sustaining habitats far from Earth? What are the long-term effects of living in space on the human body? And perhaps most importantly, what responsibilities do we bear as we extend our presence beyond Earth, into realms where human activity could alter or even damage pristine environments? As we venture beyond our home planet, space stations and habitats will be key to understanding how we can live, thrive, and perhaps one day even call other worlds home. This book invites you to join the journey, one that pushes the boundaries of technology, science, and imagination, and explores what it means for humanity to take its next steps into the stars. Buckle up and prepare for liftoff. This is not just the story of machines and structures orbiting our planet. It's the story of how life itself is reaching out to claim its place among the stars. Chapter 1: The Evolution of Space Stations, from Skylab to the International Space Station. When we think of humanity's journey into space, we often focus on the grand achievements like landing on the Moon or sending rovers to Mars. Yet, the development of space stations may be one of the most profound achievements in our quest to extend human presence beyond Earth. They serve as laboratories, observatories, and homes, allowing humans to live and work in space for extended periods. But this journey didn't start with the sleek and complex structures we have today. It began with modest, groundbreaking efforts that paved the way for the future of life in space. The early vision, from science fiction to reality. Before space stations became a reality, they existed in the realm of science fiction. Writers like Arthur C. Clarke and H.G. Wells imagined humans living in space, but it wasn't until the mid-20th century that the technology to turn these visions into reality began to take shape. With the dawn of the space race in the 1950s and 1960s, both the United States and the Soviet Union began to look beyond just sending humans into space. They started planning for long-term missions. The concept of a space station was revolutionary. A permanent or semi-permanent structure where humans could live, conduct scientific experiments, and observe Earth and the universe. These early ideas were ambitious, but they were rooted in the need to learn more about space, particularly how the human body would respond to long-term exposure to microgravity. Skylab, America's first space station. The United States made its first leap into space habitation with Skylab, launched in 1973. Unlike the sophisticated and sprawling stations of today, Skylab was relatively simple. It was a converted Saturn V rocket stage, essentially a giant canister outfitted to support human life and scientific experiments. Over the course of 3 manned missions between 1973 and 1974, Skylab hosted astronauts who conducted experiments in a range of fields, from solar astronomy to life sciences. One of the most important discoveries from Skylab was the effect of prolonged weightlessness on the human body. Astronauts experienced muscle atrophy and bone density loss, issues that would become central to designing future space stations. Skylab also gave scientists invaluable data on how to design space habitats that were both functional and livable, setting the stage for more advanced stations in the future. Although Skylab's mission ended in 1974, and the station itself re-entered Earth's atmosphere in 1979, it remains a critical chapter in the history of space exploration. Skylab proved that humans could live and work in space for extended periods, and it provided a wealth of data that would inform the design of future space habitats. The Soviet Union's Mir, a major milestone. While Skylab was a significant step, the Soviet Union's Mir space station, launched in 1986, took space habitation to the next level. Mir was the world's first modular space station, meaning it was built piece by piece, with new modules added over time. This flexibility allowed for the station to grow and evolve, eventually becoming a sprawling complex that housed astronauts for missions lasting over a year, far longer than Skylab's missions. Mir was groundbreaking not just for its design but also for what it represented: the Soviet Union's long-term commitment to space habitation. Astronauts aboard Mir conducted a wide range of experiments in biology, physics, and materials science, all while learning how to live in space for long durations. It was here that many of the challenges of long-term space living were addressed, such as maintaining mental health, ensuring a reliable food and water supply, and coping with the physical toll of living in microgravity. One of Mir's most significant legacies was its ability to foster international cooperation. Even at the height of the Cold War, American astronauts visited Mir, marking the beginning of a new era in space exploration, one where collaboration across borders would become the norm. The International Space Station, a global effort. The ultimate successor to Skylab and Mir is the International Space Station (ISS), a project of unprecedented international collaboration. Launched in 1998, the ISS represents the combined efforts of NASA, Roscosmos, Russia, ESA, Europe, JAXA, Japan, and CSA, Canada, among others. The station orbits Earth every 90 minutes at an altitude of approximately 400 kilometers, 250 miles, and is in many ways a marvel of modern engineering. The ISS is modular, much like Mir, but far more advanced. With living quarters, laboratories, solar panels, and docking ports for spacecraft, the station is a fully functioning research facility in space. It supports a rotating crew of international astronauts, and its continuous occupation since the year 2000 is one of humanity's greatest achievements in space exploration. What sets the ISS apart is not just its longevity or size, but the scope of scientific research conducted aboard. From studying the effects of microgravity on the human body to experiments in physics, biology, and materials science, the ISS has expanded our understanding of both space and Earth. The station's unique vantage point has also allowed scientists to study our planet's climate, oceans, and atmosphere in unprecedented detail. Pushing the boundaries, the future of space habitation. The ISS is not the end of the story. As we look to the future, plans for new space stations and habitats are already in development. These projects are not just about orbiting Earth, but establishing permanent outposts on the Moon, Mars, and even beyond. NASA's Artemis program aims to place a station called Lunar Gateway in orbit around the Moon, serving as a stepping stone for human missions to Mars. Private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are also working on habitats that could support life in deep space. The lessons learned from Skylab, Mir, and the ISS are invaluable as we push the boundaries of space habitation. Each station has taught us more about what it takes to survive and thrive beyond our home planet. A new era of exploration. The evolution of space stations marks the dawn of a new era in human exploration. What once seemed like science fiction is now a reality, and the next generation of space stations will take us even further from Earth. From humble beginnings with Skylab to the global effort of the ISS, each station has brought us one step closer to understanding how we can live in space, permanently. Chapter 2: Designing for Survival, the Science and Engineering of Space Habitats. Creating a space station that can safely and comfortably support human life is one of the greatest engineering challenges ever undertaken. Unlike Earth, where we have an atmosphere to protect us and abundant resources to sustain us, space is a harsh, unforgiving environment. Space stations must be meticulously designed to provide everything needed to sustain human life: air, water, food, and protection from the extremes of temperature and radiation. Every aspect of their design, from the materials used to the shape of the structure, must address these challenges. The challenges of living in space. To appreciate the complexity of designing space habitats, it's essential to understand the unique challenges of space itself. 1. Vacuum of space. In the vacuum of space there is no air or pressure, making it impossible to breathe without a controlled environment. Any breach in a space station structure could cause a catastrophic loss of air pressure. 2. Temperature extremes. Space is subject to extreme temperatures. On the sunlit side, temperatures can reach over 250 degrees Fahrenheit 120 degrees Celsius, while on the shaded side, they can plummet to minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit minus 160 degrees Celsius. Space stations must be equipped with advanced thermal control systems to maintain a stable internal temperature. 3. Microgravity. Living in a microgravity environment, commonly referred to as zero gravity, affects every aspect of daily life. Simple tasks like eating, sleeping, and exercising require careful design considerations, and equipment must be modified to function in weightlessness. 4. Radiation exposure. Without Earth's atmosphere and magnetic field to shield them, astronauts are exposed to much higher levels of cosmic radiation. This increases the risk of long-term health effects like cancer and radiation sickness, so space stations must be designed with materials and shielding that protect inhabitants. The science of structural design. Designing a space station that can survive these challenges requires ingenuity, precision, and advanced materials. The basic structure of a space station is built around pressurized modules, sealed environments where astronauts live and work. These modules are connected by docking ports, allowing for flexibility in how the station is assembled and expanded. Materials: lightweight but strong. Weight is one of the biggest concerns when launching anything into space. Every kilogram added increases the cost and complexity of the mission. That's why space stations are built using materials that are lightweight yet strong enough to withstand the pressure differences and harsh conditions of space. Some common materials used in space station construction include aluminum alloys. These are lightweight and durable, making them ideal for the structural frames of the station. Titanium. Though more expensive, titanium is used in areas that need extra strength, such as the docking ports. Kevlar and reinforced plastics. These materials are used to provide additional protection against space debris and micrometeoroids, which could puncture the station. Pressure and air control. Since there's no air in space, space stations must create their own atmosphere. This involves careful control of air pressure and composition, keeping it as close to Earth's atmosphere as possible to ensure astronauts can breathe normally. Typically, space stations maintain an atmosphere of 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen, similar to Earth. To prevent oxygen from leaking into the vacuum of space, stations use double-layered hulls. The first layer provides structural integrity, while the second provides extra protection in case of damage. These hulls are tested rigorously to ensure they can withstand micrometeorite impacts and other hazards of space. Temperature regulation. Keeping cool in space. Maintaining a stable internal temperature is crucial in space. Without the natural insulation provided by Earth's atmosphere, space stations are exposed to direct solar radiation and the deep cold of space simultaneously. To manage this, space stations use radiators to dissipate excess heat, along with insulation panels and thermal blankets to protect against extreme temperatures. Radiators. These are panels that extend from the station and release heat into space. They are vital for cooling the station's systems, which generate heat as they operate. Insulation. Space stations are insulated with materials like multi-layer insulation (MLI), which helps keep the internal temperature stable despite the fluctuating external conditions. Microgravity and interior design. making space livable. One of the most unique challenges of living in space is microgravity, where the sensation of weight disappears, making daily life completely different from life on Earth. Every aspect of a space station's interior design must take this into account. Sleeping. In microgravity, there's no up or down, so astronauts sleep in small compartments strapped into sleeping bags to prevent them from floating around. These compartments are designed to be quiet and dark, giving astronauts the chance to sleep undisturbed by the constant hum of equipment. Eating and drinking. Preparing and consuming food in space is a major challenge. Without gravity, liquids float around and food crumbs can become hazardous by clogging filters or drifting into sensitive equipment. To address this, food is often vacuum sealed or stored in tubes, and utensils are magnetic to prevent them from floating away. Space stations are equipped with water reclamation systems that recycle water from every possible source, including moisture from the air, urine, and sweat, to provide a sustainable supply of drinking water. Exercise. Maintaining muscle and bone mass. In a weightless environment, astronauts' muscles and bones begin to weaken due to lack of use, a condition known as muscle atrophy and bone density loss. To combat this, space stations are equipped with exercise machines like treadmills and resistance bands. Astronauts must exercise for at least 2 hours every day to maintain their strength and health. Radiation protection. Safeguarding astronauts' health. Space is filled with cosmic rays and solar radiation that can be harmful to humans. Since space stations are beyond the protective bubble of Earth's atmosphere, radiation shielding is a top priority in their design. Shielding materials. Materials like polyethylene are used in space stations because they are effective at blocking radiation. In some sections of the ISS, water tanks are also positioned around living quarters to act as an additional shield. Radiation monitoring. Astronauts on the ISS wear personal dosimeters that measure their radiation exposure. The station is equipped with sensors that can detect solar flares or increased cosmic radiation, warning astronauts to take cover in better shielded parts of the station if necessary. Modular design. Flexibility for the future. One of the key innovations of modern space stations is their modular design. This approach allows stations to be built in stages and expanded over time, as new modules are added. For example, the International Space Station (ISS) began with a single module in 1998 and has grown into a sprawling complex with numerous research laboratories, living quarters, and solar arrays. Each module is designed to serve a specific purpose, whether it's housing astronauts, conducting experiments, or storing supplies. This modularity makes space stations flexible and adaptable to new missions and technologies. In the future, as technology advances, new modules can be added to support different kinds of missions, such as deep space exploration or commercial activities. The future of space habitat design, going beyond Earth orbit. While the ISS represents the cutting edge of current space station design, the next generation of space habitats will push the boundaries even further. NASA's Lunar Gateway, for example, is designed to be a modular space station orbiting the Moon. It will support human missions to the lunar surface and serve as a staging point for deep space missions to Mars. Similarly, private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are working on space habitats that could eventually house civilians, tourists, and commercial researchers. These next-generation stations will need to address the same fundamental challenges of space habitation, but on a much larger and more ambitious scale. Building for the stars. Designing space stations and habitats is about much more than just putting together a structure that can float in space. It's about creating a safe, livable environment in one of the most extreme and hostile places known to humanity. Every decision, from the materials used to the layout of the living quarters, affects the success of a mission and the well-being of its inhabitants. As we look to the future, space station design will continue to evolve, moving from short-term missions to creating permanent homes in space. Whether it's orbiting Earth, the Moon, or Mars, the engineering that goes into these habitats will play a critical role in determining how, and where, humans will live beyond our home planet. Chapter 3. Life in Microgravity, How Astronauts Adapt to Living in Space. Imagine floating through the corridors of your home, no longer walking, no longer bound by gravity. This is daily life for astronauts aboard space stations, where the concept of up and down disappears, and even the simplest tasks, like eating, sleeping, and moving, become new challenges. Living in microgravity requires not just physical adaptation, but a complete shift in how we interact with our surroundings. Microgravity, often called zero gravity, isn't truly the absence of gravity. In space, astronauts are still under the influence of Earth's pull, but because they are constantly falling around the planet in orbit, they experience what we call weightlessness. This creates a fascinating environment for both science and daily life, but it also comes with profound effects on the human body and mind. The physical impact of microgravity. One of the first things astronauts notice when they enter space is the sensation of floating. There's no longer any need to walk. Instead, astronauts push off from walls or objects and glide through the station. While this might seem like fun, it quickly presents practical challenges. For instance, tools and other objects have to be secured to avoid drifting away, and astronauts must be mindful of where they position themselves to avoid collisions in tight spaces. Yet, the more significant impact is what happens inside the human body. On Earth, gravity plays a crucial role in shaping our physiology. It affects everything from how our blood circulates to how our muscles and bones bear weight. Without gravity, these systems begin to change. Muscle and bone loss. Without the need to support their own weight, astronauts' muscles begin to weaken, and bones start to lose density. This condition is known as disuse atrophy. Even though astronauts float effortlessly in space, their muscles are not getting the workout they would on Earth. Similarly, bones, which are designed to carry the body's weight, start to break down because they are no longer needed to provide structural support. Astronauts face a loss of up to 1% of their bone mass per month while in space, especially in load-bearing bones like the legs and spine. Muscles, particularly in the legs and back, also weaken quickly, which can make returning to Earth's gravity after a long mission physically demanding. To combat these effects, astronauts must exercise regularly aboard the space station. Treadmills, resistance machines, and cycling equipment are all part of the daily routine. In fact, astronauts spend up to 2 hours per day exercising to maintain their muscle and bone strength. Without this dedicated regimen, the toll of microgravity would make readjustment to life on Earth much harder. Fluid redistribution. Another immediate effect of microgravity is how fluids in the body behave. On Earth, gravity naturally pulls bodily fluids such as blood and water toward the lower part of the body. In space, without gravity's pull, these fluids shift toward the upper body. This causes astronauts to feel a fullness in the face, a sensation they often describe as similar to having a head cold. Faces appear puffier, and their legs shrink slightly due to the lack of fluid. This fluid redistribution also affects the heart. In space, the heart doesn't have to work as hard to pump blood against gravity, and as a result, it can become slightly weaker. Astronauts' bodies eventually adjust to this new condition, but it's another reason why maintaining fitness in space is crucial for health. Adapting to everyday life. Beyond the physical challenges, there's the practical question of how astronauts perform daily tasks in an environment where nothing stays put. Every aspect of life on a space station is affected by weightlessness, and clever adaptations are necessary to maintain comfort and productivity. Sleeping. In space, you don't have the luxury of lying down on a bed. There's no down or gravity to pull you onto a mattress. Instead, astronauts sleep in small, individual compartments, which serve as personal bedrooms. These compartments are equipped with sleeping bags that astronauts strap themselves into to prevent drifting around while asleep. Since there's no up or down, they can sleep in any orientation. Upside down or sideways, it makes no difference. One unexpected side effect of sleeping in space is that astronauts experience fewer backaches. On Earth, gravity compresses the spine, but in space, vertebrae expand slightly, allowing astronauts to grow up to 2 inches taller during their missions. Eating. Without gravity, even the simple act of eating becomes tricky. Liquids float in spherical blobs, and crumbs can become hazardous if they drift into ventilation systems or electronics. To prevent this, food is carefully prepared and packaged. Many meals come in sealed pouches, and astronauts eat with magnetic utensils to keep everything in place. drinking is equally challenging. Liquids are stored in special containers with straws that astronauts sip from, preventing the fluids from floating freely. NASA has developed ways to provide astronauts with a varied diet that includes dehydrated meals, rehydrated with water, and vacuum-sealed snacks. Meals are designed not only to be nutritious but also enjoyable. Psychological well-being is just as important as physical health when living in space for months at a time. Hygiene. Taking care of personal hygiene in space also requires creativity. There's no running water, so astronauts use rinseless wipes and no-rinse shampoos to clean themselves. For brushing teeth, water and toothpaste are spat into towels instead of sinks. Showers, as we know them on Earth, are impractical, so astronauts rely on sponge baths to stay clean. Psychological adaptations. Life in a confined space. Spending extended periods in space doesn't just test the body, it also tests the mind. Astronauts must deal with isolation, confinement, and the stress of living in an environment that's inherently dangerous. The International Space Station, ISS, is roughly the size of a 5-bedroom house, but with multiple astronauts aboard, space can feel tight and privacy is limited. Astronauts are trained extensively to handle the psychological challenges of space missions. They must learn how to maintain focus, stay positive, and work together effectively in close quarters. To support mental health, the crew has regular contact with their families and mission control on Earth. They also have access to entertainment like movies, books, and music, and can take part in recreational activities like photography or art to relieve stress. Teamwork and communication are essential for maintaining harmony aboard the station. Astronauts come from different countries and cultures, but they must work as a tight-knit team, often for months at a time. Effective communication helps prevent misunderstandings and ensures that tasks are completed smoothly. To break up the monotony of daily routines, astronauts celebrate special events, such as holidays and birthdays, even in space. They often share meals together and have movie nights, watching films projected onto the walls of the station. These small rituals help create a sense of normalcy in an otherwise extraordinary environment. Scientific benefits of life in microgravity. Living in microgravity isn't just a challenge to overcome, it's also a scientific opportunity. Space stations like the ISS offer a unique environment for conducting experiments that are impossible on Earth. Scientists use microgravity to study everything from biological processes to material science, gaining insights that could benefit life on Earth. For example, in the absence of gravity, researchers can observe how cells grow and behave in ways they wouldn't otherwise. This has led to advancements in cancer research, as scientists study how cells grow differently in space. Similarly, experiments in fluid dynamics and combustion are more precise in microgravity, providing data that could improve everything from fuel efficiency to medical treatments. The space station's position in orbit also allows for the study of Earth itself. Astronauts on the ISS regularly observe and photograph the planet's weather patterns, environmental changes, and even human activity from space, providing valuable data for scientists studying climate change, natural disasters, and urban development. A day in the life of an astronaut. So, what does a typical day look like aboard a space station? Astronauts follow a structured schedule to keep everything running smoothly. Their day begins with a wake-up call, followed by a morning routine of hygiene and breakfast. Afterward, they start their workday, which includes scientific experiments, station maintenance, and exercise. Exercise is a key part of the daily routine, helping astronauts maintain their physical health in microgravity. After their work is done, astronauts have some downtime to relax, communicate with loved ones, or engage in recreational activities. At the end of the day, they head to their sleeping quarters, strap into their sleeping bags, and drift off into a weightless sleep, ready to do it all over again the next day. Chapter 4. Sustaining life, food, water, and air in space stations. When we think about life in space, the first image that often comes to mind is astronauts floating weightlessly, gazing down at Earth. However, behind this extraordinary experience lies a complex and precise system that ensures their most basic needs, food, water, and air, are met. Unlike life on Earth, where we can take a breath of fresh air or turn on the tap without a second thought, astronauts rely entirely on technology to create and sustain the essentials of life in the harsh environment of space. In space, every breath, every drop of water, and every bite of food has to be carefully managed. Space stations like the International Space Station (ISS) are closed environments, meaning they can't easily rely on new supplies from Earth, especially during long missions. Engineers and scientists have developed systems to recycle and replenish resources, ensuring that astronauts can live for months or even years without depending on frequent resupply missions. Creating air, breathing in space. Air is one of the most critical resources for astronauts. Without a steady supply of oxygen, even the most advanced technology would be useless. In space, there's no atmosphere to draw air from, so space stations must produce their own breathable environment. Inside the ISS, a system called the Environmental Control and Life Support System (ECLSS) is responsible for maintaining the air quality. This system generates oxygen by splitting water molecules through a process called electrolysis. When water is split, it produces oxygen and hydrogen, and the oxygen is released into the station's atmosphere for the crew to breathe. However, producing oxygen is just one part of the equation. The air astronauts breathe out contains carbon dioxide, CO2, which can become toxic if it builds up. Therefore, the ECLSS also includes a CO2 removal system that filters out excess carbon dioxide, ensuring that the air remains breathable. Without this, the air would quickly become unfit for humans. Beyond these basic functions, air quality in space requires careful monitoring. The station is filled with scientific equipment and electrical systems that could potentially produce harmful fumes or gases. Air quality sensors constantly track the composition of the station's atmosphere, ensuring that any contaminants are detected and addressed quickly. Water, a precious resource. In space, water is one of the most valuable and carefully managed resources. While astronauts can't collect water from natural sources, they rely on a sophisticated recycling system to reclaim and purify every drop. This includes water from sweat, urine, and even the moisture in the air. It might sound unappealing, but the technology on the ISS is so advanced that the water astronauts drink is actually cleaner than most of what we drink on Earth. The process starts with the Water Recovery System, WRS, which captures and purifies water from a variety of sources. Water from astronauts' sweat is collected through the station's ventilation system, and urine is processed using a special purification unit. Even condensation from the air is gathered and filtered. The water is then treated and tested to ensure it's safe to drink. This approach is not just practical, it's essential. Shipping water to space is incredibly expensive, and relying on Earth for a continuous supply isn't feasible, especially as we look toward future missions to the Moon or Mars, where resupply missions would be even more infrequent. Every drop counts, and the recycling system ensures that astronauts have enough clean water to drink, cook, and clean. Water is also used for cooling the station's systems and for generating oxygen through electrolysis. As with air, managing water in space is a constant balancing act of conservation, purification, and reuse. Food in space, a changing menu. Early space missions didn't exactly offer gourmet meals. Astronauts in the 1960s had to eat from toothpaste-like tubes or chew on small cubes of freeze-dried food. But as space missions became longer and more advanced, so did the food. Today, astronauts enjoy a wide variety of meals that are not only nutritious but also designed to be enjoyable, a key factor in maintaining morale during long missions. Space food is carefully engineered to meet the nutritional needs of astronauts. Living in microgravity changes how the human body processes food, so astronauts need meals that are rich in nutrients to help combat the muscle and bone loss that occurs in space. Each meal is planned with precise portions of protein, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals to ensure astronauts stay healthy. Food is prepared on Earth and sent to the ISS in vacuum-sealed pouches to preserve freshness and flavor. Once in space, astronauts can rehydrate many of these meals using water from the station's recycling system, or they can heat them up in a specially designed oven. Although they don't have traditional cooking equipment, astronauts still enjoy dishes like pasta, chicken, and even desserts. However, eating in space is not without its challenges. In microgravity, food doesn't behave the same way it does on Earth. Liquids float around, and crumbs can be dangerous if they drift into sensitive equipment. To prevent this, food is often sticky or moist to keep it contained, and utensils are designed to be functional in a weightless environment. While astronauts currently rely on prepackaged meals, future missions, especially to Mars, will require more sustainable solutions. Scientists are exploring the possibility of growing fresh food in space, like vegetables and herbs. This would not only provide astronauts with a more varied diet but also improve their psychological well-being, as fresh produce can be a comforting and morale-boosting addition to the menu. Waste management, closing the loop. Sustaining life in space isn't just about providing food, water, and air. It's also about managing waste. Everything from food wrappers to bodily waste must be carefully handled to prevent contamination and maintain a healthy living environment. Solid waste, like food packaging and human waste, is collected in specialized containers and stored until it can be disposed of. Waste from the ISS is typically packed into used cargo ships, which are sent back toward Earth and burned up upon re-entry into the atmosphere. This keeps the station clean and prevents excess waste from accumulating in orbit. Recycling plays a huge role in the life support systems of the ISS. The ability to recycle waste products into usable resources, such as reclaiming water from urine, is crucial for maintaining long-term sustainability. As space exploration extends farther from Earth, perfecting these closed-loop systems will be essential for survival. Psychological importance of food and comfort. Surviving in space isn't just about staying alive physically, it's about thriving mentally as well. The psychological aspect of eating in space is often overlooked, but it's a critical part of astronaut well-being. Familiar foods, special treats, and meals shared with crewmates offer comfort and a sense of normalcy, helping to reduce the stress and isolation of living in space for months at a time. NASA has also experimented with allowing astronauts to grow small plants aboard the ISS, such as lettuce and radishes. These small-scale gardens offer more than just a food source. They provide astronauts with a connection to Earth and a calming, therapeutic activity in an otherwise high-stress environment. In future missions to the Moon or Mars, where the distance from Earth will create even more isolation, the role of food in maintaining psychological health will become even more important. Growing food on-site may become a crucial part of creating a sustainable and psychologically healthy space habitat. Sustainability and the future of life support systems. As humanity looks beyond Earth for longer missions, sustaining life will become even more complex. On the Moon, Mars, or even farther out, resupply missions from Earth will be rare, if not impossible. Future space habitats will need to be almost entirely self-sustaining, relying on closed-loop systems to recycle air, water, and waste. Scientists and engineers are already working on developing more advanced life support systems for these long-term missions. One promising area of research is bioregenerative life support systems, where plants and algae could play a role in producing oxygen, cleaning water, and even growing food. These systems mimic Earth's natural ecosystems and could be crucial for supporting life on other planets. In the near future, astronauts may live in habitats that are more like self-sustaining ecosystems than the mechanical systems of today's space stations. As these technologies evolve, they will not only ensure survival in space but also open the door to the possibility of permanent human settlements on other worlds. Chapter 5. The Role of Artificial Intelligence, Automation in Space Habitats. Space is a place where even the simplest tasks become complex. From monitoring life support systems to managing scientific experiments, the amount of work required to keep a space station running smoothly is immense. This is where artificial intelligence, AI, and automation step in, playing a critical role in both easing the burden on astronauts and ensuring their safety. AI has become the silent but powerful partner in space exploration, providing solutions to the unique challenges of life beyond Earth. The introduction of AI into space exploration has been gradual but transformative. While early space stations were operated entirely by humans, the increasing complexity of modern missions requires technology that can assist in everything from mundane tasks to life and death decisions. Automation and AI systems allow space habitats to operate more efficiently, leaving astronauts to focus on more critical work like scientific research and maintaining their health. The evolution of automation in space. Automation in space missions began as simple computer systems designed to monitor equipment and manage basic tasks like communication. Over time, these systems became more sophisticated. In today's space stations, AI can be found managing everything from power distribution to air quality, continuously running in the background to keep the station functioning. One of the most significant developments in AI's role is the ability to predict and solve problems before they arise. Space stations are incredibly complex systems, with hundreds of interconnected parts that need constant monitoring. AI can process vast amounts of data faster and more accurately than humans, allowing it to detect potential issues, such as a malfunctioning life support system, before they become critical. This predictive capability is essential in space, where a minor technical issue could quickly escalate into a life-threatening situation. For example, on the International Space Station (ISS), AI helps monitor the health of crucial systems like air filtration, water purification, and power supply. By continuously analyzing data from sensors, AI can alert the crew to small irregularities, giving astronauts time to address problems before they lead to more significant issues. This proactive approach is essential in an environment where help from Earth could take hours or days to arrive. AI as a crew member. Meet Simon. Perhaps one of the most fascinating developments in AI's role aboard space stations is its transition from a background assistant to an interactive crew member. A prime example of this is Simon, Crew Interactive Mobile Companion, a robotic AI assistant developed by Airbus for the ISS. Simon isn't just a floating piece of machinery, it's designed to interact with astronauts, helping them with tasks, offering reminders, and even engaging in conversations to boost morale. Simon can recognize faces, understand voice commands, and provide visual feedback on tasks. Its ability to respond in real time to astronauts' needs makes it a valuable tool for managing the complex operations aboard the station. For instance, if an astronaut is performing a complex procedure or experiment, Simon can display instructions, provide suggestions, or even document the process, all while floating alongside the crew member. Beyond its technical capabilities, Simon also serves an emotional function. Living in the confined, isolated environment of a space station can be mentally taxing, and astronauts spend long stretches of time away from friends and family. Having an AI assistant like Simon can help alleviate some of that isolation by offering interaction, even if it's just a simple conversation or joke. In many ways, AI assistants like Simon represent the future of human-AI collaboration in space, where technology isn't just a tool but a companion. Autonomous spacecraft and the future of exploration. AI is not just limited to space stations. It's becoming increasingly important in the operation of spacecraft themselves. As we look toward missions that take humans farther from Earth, to the Moon, Mars, and beyond, AI will play a crucial role in navigating these missions and ensuring their success. For long-duration missions, especially those that take astronauts far from Earth's immediate reach, spacecraft will need to operate with a high degree of autonomy. Communication delays between Earth and a spacecraft could stretch for minutes, making real-time control from mission control impossible. In these scenarios, AI systems must take over navigation, system maintenance, and even critical decision-making in emergencies. Spacecraft designed for deep space exploration, such as those in development for Mars missions, will rely on AI to manage life support systems, monitor onboard conditions, and even assist with landing operations. AI systems can analyze landing zones in real time, adjusting the spacecraft's trajectory to ensure a safe touchdown on unfamiliar terrain. This level of autonomy will be essential as humanity ventures farther into space, where immediate human intervention may not always be possible. Robotic assistance for spacewalks and repairs. Spacewalks, where astronauts leave the safety of the station to perform repairs or upgrades, are among the most dangerous tasks in space. Even with the most advanced suits, spacewalks expose astronauts to risks such as micrometeoroids, extreme temperatures, and the potential for equipment failure. To reduce the need for human spacewalks, AI-driven robotics are being developed to handle many of these tasks autonomously. The Robonaut, a humanoid robot created by NASA, is one such innovation. Robonaut is designed to mimic the movements of a human astronaut, allowing it to perform complex tasks like tightening bolts or replacing components on the station's exterior. By taking over these high-risk tasks, AI-powered robots like Robonaut can minimize the need for astronauts to put themselves in harm's way. In the future, it's likely that entire robotic repair teams will work alongside astronauts, handling routine maintenance while leaving the more complex, human-dependent tasks for the crew. These robots won't just reduce the physical risks. They'll also free up valuable time for astronauts to focus on scientific experiments and exploration. AI in deep space, preparing for the unknown. As humanity looks beyond the relatively safe orbit of Earth, AI will become even more indispensable. Missions to Mars or deep space will require space habitats to operate in environments that are less predictable and more hostile than the familiar territory of low Earth orbit. AI will help navigate these unknowns, adjusting to conditions that humans might not foresee or understand. For example, AI can manage resource allocation on long-duration missions, ensuring that vital supplies like water, air, and food are used efficiently. It can also monitor the psychological well-being of the crew, offering support when astronauts might feel isolated or stressed during extended space travel. AI's ability to process data and make real-time decisions will be critical in these distant missions, where communication delays make immediate help from Earth impossible. In many ways, AI will serve as the backbone of future space exploration, providing the insight, foresight, and support necessary to survive and thrive in the far reaches of our solar system. The Human-AI Partnership, a future of collaboration. As AI continues to evolve, its relationship with astronauts will deepen. Rather than replacing humans, AI is designed to enhance their abilities, acting as a partner that complements the strengths of the human mind. By taking on routine tasks, analyzing vast amounts of data, and solving problems faster than humans can, AI allows astronauts to focus on the more creative, critical thinking aspects of space exploration. The future of space habitats will likely see this collaboration grow even stronger. Whether it's a mission to Mars or the establishment of lunar bases, AI will be there, guiding humans through the challenges, assisting in decisions, and providing both technical and emotional support. As we push the boundaries of what's possible in space, the Human-AI Partnership will be essential. Together, we will explore new worlds, solve problems we haven't yet imagined, and perhaps one day, make the dream of living permanently beyond Earth a reality. Chapter 6: Future of Space Stations, Plans for Orbital and Lunar Habitats. As we look toward the future of space exploration, it's clear that space stations will play an increasingly important role in humanity's journey beyond Earth. What began as temporary outposts for scientific research is evolving into something much grander: permanent space habitats that could one day serve as homes for astronauts, scientists, and even civilians. These future stations will push the boundaries of technology and human endurance, paving the way for sustained life in space. The next era of space stations is already on the horizon, and it promises to take us farther than we've ever gone before. With advancements in technology and growing interest from both government space agencies and private companies, the possibilities are expanding. From new orbital habitats designed to replace the aging International Space Station (ISS), to bold plans for lunar bases, we are on the cusp of a new space age. Replacing the ISS, the next generation of orbital stations. The International Space Station has been a groundbreaking achievement, but after more than 2 decades in orbit, it's nearing the end of its operational life. NASA, along with its international partners, is exploring what comes next. The goal is to build a new generation of orbital habitats that can support scientific research, space tourism, and even serve as a stepping stone for missions deeper into space. Several private companies are already working on designs for these new space stations. For example, Axiom Space plans to build a commercial space station that could eventually replace the ISS. Their station would provide not only research facilities but also accommodations for private astronauts, tourists, and commercial ventures. This marks a shift from government-led space stations to a more commercialized future, where private companies play a key role in maintaining humanity's presence in space. One of the key innovations of future orbital stations will be their ability to operate with greater autonomy. Advanced artificial intelligence, automated systems, and improved life support technologies will allow these stations to run with minimal human intervention, reducing the need for continuous crew presence. This will enable longer, more sustainable missions without the constant need for supply missions from Earth. These stations will also have modular designs, allowing them to expand as needed. This flexibility is crucial as we look to accommodate more diverse missions, from long-term scientific studies to the possibility of extended stays for civilians and space tourists. The Lunar Gateway, humanity's first step beyond Earth orbit. While new orbital stations will continue to be important, the next giant leap is the construction of a space station beyond Earth's orbit. NASA's Lunar Gateway is the first step in this direction. The Gateway is a planned space station that will orbit the Moon and serve as a hub for both robotic and crewed missions to the lunar surface. The Lunar Gateway represents a critical stepping stone in humanity's effort to explore the Moon, Mars, and eventually deeper space. It will provide a platform for astronauts to live and work in space for extended periods while being close enough to Earth to ensure safety and resupply missions. The Gateway will also be modular, allowing additional parts to be added over time to expand its capabilities. One of the most exciting aspects of the Lunar Gateway is its role as a staging point for Mars missions. As space agencies like NASA and private companies like SpaceX work toward sending humans to Mars, the Gateway will serve as a launch pad for these long-distance missions. It will allow spacecraft to refuel, resupply, and conduct necessary checks before heading into deeper space. Moreover, the Gateway will open new opportunities for scientific research on the Moon, which could reveal crucial insights about our solar system. By studying the Moon's surface, scientists hope to better understand the origins of the Earth and the Moon itself, as well as prepare for future lunar settlements. Lunar habitats, establishing a permanent presence on the Moon. The Moon is set to become humanity's first permanent off-world base, with space agencies and private companies alike planning to establish lunar habitats. NASA's Artemis program is spearheading this effort, with the goal of landing astronauts on the Moon by 2025 and establishing a sustainable human presence by the end of the decade. Unlike the temporary Apollo missions of the past, future lunar bases will be designed for long-term habitation. These habitats will need to protect astronauts from the Moon's harsh environment, which includes extreme temperatures, dangerous radiation levels, and the absence of an atmosphere. One of the key challenges will be finding ways to make these habitats self-sustaining, reducing the need for constant resupply from Earth. One potential solution is to use the Moon's own resources, a concept known as in situ resource utilization, ISRU. For example, scientists believe there are ice deposits at the lunar poles, which could be mined and converted into water, oxygen, and even fuel. If successful, this would greatly reduce the reliance on Earth for essential supplies and make lunar bases more sustainable. Lunar habitats will also serve as testing grounds for the technologies needed to establish human settlements on Mars. The Moon's relatively close proximity to Earth makes it the ideal location to experiment with new life support systems, radiation protection methods, and construction techniques that will be essential for future missions to Mars and beyond. Space tourism. Opening space to civilians. While space stations have traditionally been the domain of scientists and astronauts, the future of space habitation could include civilians as well. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic are already working toward making space tourism a reality. In the coming years, we may see the construction of space hotels and private habitats designed for wealthy tourists looking for the ultimate adventure. These space tourism ventures won't just be about luxury vacations. They'll also help fund further research and development of space habitats. The income generated from tourists could support the construction of new stations, allowing for greater innovation and expansion of humanity's presence in space. As space tourism grows, the need for advanced infrastructure will increase. This could mean building new, privately owned space stations dedicated to tourism, or expanding existing stations like the ones planned by Axiom Space. Either way, space tourism will likely play a significant role in the future of space habitats, helping to accelerate the development of technologies that make long-term living in space feasible for a wider range of people. Beyond the moon, the dream of Mars colonization. While the moon is our immediate focus, Mars remains the ultimate goal for space exploration. Establishing a human presence on Mars would be a monumental achievement, and space stations will play a crucial role in making this dream a reality. To colonize Mars, we will need to build habitats that can sustain life in an even more hostile environment than the moon. Martian habitats will need to protect against not only extreme cold but also dangerous radiation, all while supporting life with limited resources. Much like on the moon, the ability to use local resources, such as extracting water from Martian soil or generating oxygen from the planet's thin atmosphere, will be key to establishing a permanent settlement. Mars colonies will likely start small, with robotic missions preparing the way by building the infrastructure needed for human settlers. Over time, these colonies could grow, becoming self-sustaining and supporting not just research but also agriculture, industry, and even commerce. However, the challenges of getting to Mars and living there are immense. The journey itself takes months, and once there, astronauts will be far more isolated than on the moon. Communication with Earth will have a significant time delay, meaning Mars settlers will need to rely on their own systems and decision-making processes. AI and automation will once again play a crucial role in supporting human life on the Red Planet. A future among the stars. The future of space stations and habitats is incredibly exciting. What began as temporary research outposts is evolving into something far greater: the potential for permanent human settlements beyond Earth. As we push the boundaries of space exploration, space stations will serve as the foundation for our expansion, providing the infrastructure needed for humans to live, work, and thrive in space. From the replacement of the ISS with advanced orbital stations to the bold ambition of building lunar and Martian colonies, space stations will be the key to unlocking humanity's future among the stars. With each new development, we come one step closer to making the dream of living off Earth a reality. Chapter 7: Colonizing Mars, What We Can Learn from Space Stations. The dream of colonizing Mars has captivated humanity for decades. It's a vision of stepping out of Earth's protective atmosphere and establishing life on another planet. But turning this vision into reality isn't as simple as sending a spacecraft and landing on the Red Planet. Mars presents unique challenges that will test the limits of human ingenuity and endurance. Fortunately, the lessons we've learned from building and living aboard space stations like the International Space Station (ISS) offer invaluable insights into how we might eventually survive and thrive on Mars. Space stations have taught us how to live in hostile environments far from Earth, dealing with challenges like limited resources, isolation, and the need for closed-loop systems that recycle air, water, and waste. These are the same challenges we'll face on Mars, but on a far grander scale. The key difference is that while space stations orbit close to Earth, Mars is over 54 million kilometers away at its closest, making the stakes much higher. Living in isolation. Lessons from the ISS. One of the first things we've learned from space stations is how to live in isolation for extended periods. Astronauts aboard the ISS spend months away from their families, isolated in a small, confined space with only a handful of people for company. This isolation can lead to psychological challenges, including stress, anxiety, and depression. On Mars, the isolation will be even more extreme. Communication between Mars and Earth will have a significant delay, up to 20 minutes one way, so astronauts won't have the immediate support of mission control. They will have to rely on themselves, their crewmates, and onboard AI systems to solve problems and make decisions. The ISS has shown us the importance of mental health support in space. On Mars, astronauts will need regular access to mental health resources, including the ability to communicate with loved ones and engage in activities that break the monotony of daily tasks. Crew dynamics will be critical, as interpersonal conflicts could have serious consequences in such a confined, isolated environment. Lessons from the ISS about team building and stress management will be vital for long-term Mars missions. Sustainability, closed-loop systems. On the ISS, astronauts depend on closed-loop systems that recycle resources like air, water, and waste. These systems ensure that nothing goes to waste in an environment where resupply missions are rare and costly. Mars will require even more robust and efficient systems, as resupply missions will be infrequent, if not impossible for extended periods. Water is one of the most precious resources in space, and space stations have pioneered the development of water recycling technology. The ISS uses systems that recover water from urine, sweat, and the air, purifying it for reuse. On Mars, this will be even more critical. Although Mars has ice that could potentially be mined for water, this process will be energy-intensive and complex. Recycling water as efficiently as possible will be key to survival. The same goes for air. Space stations rely on systems that produce oxygen by splitting water molecules and remove carbon dioxide from the air. These systems must work flawlessly on Mars, where the thin atmosphere provides no breathable air and protection from radiation is minimal. Mars colonists will need to generate their own oxygen, likely using a process similar to the one employed on the ISS. At the same time, they will need to develop advanced methods for recycling waste, turning organic material into usable resources like compost for growing food. Radiation, the silent danger. One of the most serious challenges of living on Mars is radiation exposure. Unlike Earth, which is protected by a thick atmosphere and magnetic field, Mars offers little protection from harmful cosmic rays and solar radiation. On the ISS, astronauts are exposed to higher levels of radiation than on Earth, and we've learned much about how this affects human health. Prolonged exposure to radiation can increase the risk of cancer, damage DNA, and weaken the immune system. On Mars, the danger will be even greater. Astronauts will need to live and work in habitats that are heavily shielded from radiation. Space station technology has already begun to address this issue through the development of radiation shields, and future Mars habitats will need to take this even further. Potential solutions include building habitats underground or using materials like Martian soil to create thick, protective barriers. This problem isn't just about survival. Radiation also impacts the long-term health of astronauts, making it critical to find ways to minimize exposure, especially for missions that could last years or even a lifetime. Growing food on Mars, from space stations to self-sustaining colonies. Feeding astronauts on Mars will be a monumental challenge. While space stations rely on prepackaged meals sent from Earth, this approach won't work for long-term missions to Mars. To sustain a colony, we need to grow food locally. This is where the lessons from space stations will play a crucial role. On the ISS, experiments in growing food have been ongoing for years. Astronauts have successfully cultivated small crops like lettuce, radishes, and mustard greens. These experiments have taught us how plants respond to microgravity and the challenges of growing food in a controlled environment. While Mars has gravity, albeit lower than Earth's, the process of growing food there will still be complex due to the lack of natural sunlight, water, and nutrient-rich soil. On Mars, we'll need to build greenhouses that can simulate Earth-like conditions, using artificial light and possibly hydroponic systems to grow crops without soil. Water will need to be carefully rationed and recycled, and nutrients will likely come from composted organic material or synthetic fertilizers. The goal is to create a self-sustaining food production system that can support a growing colony over time. In addition to the physical benefits of having a local food supply, growing food on Mars will have psychological benefits as well. Fresh food, something we take for granted on Earth, could become a valuable morale booster for Mars colonists, providing a connection to Earth and a sense of normalcy in an otherwise alien environment. Preparing for Mars, testing on Earth and beyond. Before we can send humans to Mars, we need to test our technologies and systems on Earth and in space. The ISS has been a valuable testing ground for many of the systems we'll need for Mars, from life support to food production. But we're also testing these technologies in analog environments on Earth, places that mimic the conditions astronauts will face on Mars. Mars analogs such as the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah and HICs in Hawaii simulate the isolation, confinement, and resource limitations that astronauts will experience on Mars. These analog missions help scientists refine the technology and strategies needed to ensure survival and productivity in space. They also provide insights into the psychological challenges of living in such a harsh and isolated environment. In addition to analog missions, space agencies are preparing by conducting robotic missions to Mars, like NASA's Perseverance rover. These robots are not only exploring the Martian surface but also testing systems like oxygen production from the planet's atmosphere. This kind of research is critical for developing the technologies that will eventually allow humans to live on Mars. Looking toward the future, Mars as a stepping stone. Colonizing Mars isn't just about the red planet itself. It's a stepping stone toward deeper space exploration. The technologies and strategies we develop for Mars could one day be applied to other destinations, such as the moons of Jupiter or Saturn. Space stations and Mars colonies will serve as laboratories for testing how humans can live far beyond Earth, eventually leading to a future where space is not just a place we visit, but a place where we live. As we build the first human habitats on Mars, we'll be laying the foundation for the next chapter in space exploration. The lessons we've learned from space stations, combined with the innovations yet to come, will allow us to thrive in environments once thought impossible. Chapter 8. Space Tourism and Commercialization, Opening Space to Civilians. For much of history, space travel has been the exclusive domain of governments and highly trained astronauts. The sight of Earth from orbit or the weightlessness of space was a privilege few could experience. However, as technology advances and the cost of launching spacecraft decreases, a new era is dawning, one in which ordinary civilians might soon be able to visit space. The rise of space tourism and the commercialization of space is no longer science fiction but a reality taking shape before our eyes. The idea of space tourism isn't entirely new. For decades, visionaries have imagined a future where people could take vacations in space, traveling beyond Earth's atmosphere the same way they might board a plane for a holiday destination. But today this vision is moving closer to reality, driven by private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic. These companies are not only focused on expanding space exploration but also on making space accessible to the general public. The first space tourists, a new kind of traveler. The concept of space tourism first became a reality in 2001 when Dennis Tito, an American entrepreneur, paid around $20 million to spend a week aboard the International Space Station, ISS. Tito became the world's first space tourist, traveling to space not as an astronaut on a government mission but as a paying civilian. Since then, a small number of wealthy individuals have followed in his footsteps, marking the early stages of a new industry. But space tourism is no longer limited to multimillionaires. As more companies enter the space race, the cost of traveling to space is expected to drop. Suborbital flights, which allow tourists to experience a brief period of weightlessness and see the curvature of the Earth, are already being marketed to the public. Virgin Galactic, for example, is selling tickets for around $250,000, promising customers a once-in-a-lifetime experience that includes a few minutes of weightlessness and breathtaking views from the edge of space. These early flights are just the beginning. In the near future, space tourism could evolve from short suborbital trips to more extended stays in space, perhaps aboard private space stations or even lunar outposts. The development of commercial space stations will play a crucial role in making these longer trips possible, providing a place for tourists to stay, explore, and experience life in space. The role of private companies, space as a commercial frontier. Private companies have taken the lead in opening space to civilians. Elon Musk's SpaceX is at the forefront of this movement, with its goal of reducing the cost of space travel and making it possible for more people to visit space. In recent years, SpaceX has made significant progress with the Falcon 9 rocket and the Crew Dragon capsule, which have successfully launched astronauts to the ISS. These same technologies are now being adapted for civilian spaceflight, and Musk has even hinted at sending tourists around the moon in the near future. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin is focusing on suborbital space tourism with its New Shepard rocket. This reusable spacecraft is designed to carry passengers to the edge of space, offering them a few minutes of weightlessness before returning to Earth. Blue Origin's vision is to create a future where millions of people live and work in space, and space tourism is seen as the first step toward making that dream a reality. As more companies enter the space industry, space itself is becoming commercialized in ways we haven't seen before. Companies are not only focusing on sending people to space but also on making space a place for business. Future commercial space stations could serve as research hubs, manufacturing facilities, and even luxury hotels. Axiom Space, for example, plans to build the first private space station, offering space tourists the opportunity to stay in orbit for extended periods. This shift toward commercialization opens up exciting possibilities for the future of space travel. As the infrastructure for space tourism grows, it will lead to more frequent launches, lower costs, and eventually, a broader market that includes not just the ultra-wealthy but a larger segment of the population. Experiencing space beyond the view. While the view from space is one of the main attractions for space tourists, the experience of being in space offers so much more. The sensation of weightlessness is unlike anything most people have ever felt. Tourists aboard suborbital flights or space stations will have the chance to float freely, experiencing the same physical liberation that astronauts enjoy during their missions. This physical sensation, combined with the psychological impact of seeing Earth from space, a phenomenon astronauts often describe as the overview effect, could be life-changing for many. The overview effect refers to the profound cognitive shift that occurs when seeing Earth from space. It's a realization of the fragility of our planet, a sense of interconnectedness with all life, and a recognition of how small and precious Earth is in the vastness of space. For space tourists, this moment could inspire new perspectives on life, the environment, and humanity's place in the universe. Space tourism may also include unique recreational activities, such as spacewalks for the more adventurous, or even the possibility of exploring the surface of the Moon in the distant future. These experiences will offer a blend of adventure and wonder that can't be replicated anywhere on Earth. The challenges of space tourism. While the prospect of space tourism is thrilling, it comes with challenges. Safety is, of course, the top concern. Space travel is inherently risky, and ensuring the safety of civilians requires careful planning, rigorous training, and advanced technology. Companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are investing heavily in making space travel as safe as possible, with extensive testing of spacecraft, redundant safety systems, and emergency protocols. Another challenge is the physical toll that space travel can take on the human body. Space tourists, even on short suborbital flights, will experience high G-forces during launch and re-entry, which can be uncomfortable or even dangerous for those with certain health conditions. Companies offering space tourism will likely require medical screenings and fitness tests to ensure that passengers are physically capable of handling the journey. There's also the question of how to make space tourism sustainable in the long term. Launching spacecraft into orbit still requires significant amounts of fuel and resources, which have environmental impacts. As the industry grows, companies will need to explore more sustainable ways to travel to space, whether through reusable rockets, alternative fuels, or other innovative solutions. Space tourism's potential impact on society. The commercialization of space tourism has the potential to profoundly impact society in several ways. First, it could help democratize space exploration, making the dream of traveling to space accessible to more people over time. While space tourism is currently only available to the wealthy, the long-term goal is to lower costs so that a broader range of people can experience space. As more people travel to space, it could also lead to a greater appreciation for Earth and a renewed focus on environmental issues. The overview effect, that transformative perspective astronauts experience, could inspire space tourists to become advocates for protecting our planet, raising awareness about climate change, pollution, and sustainability. Finally, space tourism could spark a new wave of innovation, as the demand for space travel drives advancements in technology, infrastructure, and education. Just as the early days of aviation led to widespread technological growth and societal change, the rise of space tourism could fuel the next great leap in human progress. The future, living and working in space. While space tourism is an exciting step toward making space more accessible, it's only the beginning. In the future, we may see people not just visiting space for a few days, but living and working there for extended periods. Commercial space stations could host researchers, workers, and tourists alike, creating a new frontier for both science and business. Companies are already exploring the potential for space-based industries, from manufacturing to energy production. The unique conditions of space, such as microgravity, could allow for the development of new materials and technologies that aren't possible on Earth. In this sense, space tourism is not just about leisure, it's about opening the door to a new economic frontier that could reshape our world. Imagine a future where space hotels are common, where workers commute to orbital factories, and where families can vacation on the moon. It may sound like science fiction now, but as space tourism grows and space becomes more commercialized, this future could become reality. Chapter 9: Ethical and Environmental Considerations: The Challenges of Expanding Beyond Earth. As we move closer to realizing the dream of living and working in space, there are profound ethical and environmental questions that need to be addressed. The excitement of space exploration and the potential for human expansion into space are undeniable, but with these opportunities comes significant responsibilities. How we choose to navigate the frontier of space could have long-lasting consequences not only for humanity but also for the very environments we seek to explore. Expanding human activity into space requires us to think critically about the impact we have, both in the short term and far into the future. From managing the risks of space debris to protecting the pristine surfaces of other celestial bodies, the decisions we make now will shape how we interact with space for generations to come. We must ask ourselves, how do we ensure that we explore space responsibly? And what kind of legacy do we want to leave as we take our first steps beyond Earth? Space debris, a growing problem. One of the most immediate environmental concerns is the growing issue of space debris. Decades of satellite launches, space station construction, and other activities in orbit have left behind a hazardous cloud of debris, ranging from spent rocket stages to tiny fragments of metal. While these pieces of debris may seem insignificant, they pose a serious threat to current and future space missions. In low Earth orbit, where most of our satellites and space stations reside, space debris can travel at speeds of up to 28,000 kilometers per hour. Even a small piece of debris no larger than a paint chip can cause catastrophic damage to a spacecraft or satellite due to its incredible velocity. Collisions between space debris have already occurred, creating even more debris and compounding the problem. As we send more spacecraft into orbit and beyond, the amount of debris will only increase unless we take proactive measures to manage it. Some companies and agencies are already developing technologies to remove debris from orbit, such as nets, robotic arms, or even using lasers to push debris into lower orbits where it will burn up in the atmosphere. However, these are still in the early stages, and addressing the issue of space debris will require global cooperation and regulation. Protecting celestial bodies: the ethical dilemma of space colonization. As we expand our presence in space, another critical question arises: how do we protect the environments of other planets, moons, and celestial bodies? Mars, the Moon, and the asteroids are not just potential resources for humanity, they are also unique environments with their own histories and characteristics. Our actions could alter these places in ways we don't fully understand, and once changed, they may never return to their original state. For example, when humans land on Mars, the surface will inevitably be disturbed. Even the most careful landing sites will leave behind traces of our presence: footprints, equipment, and structures. There's also the risk of contaminating these environments with Earth-based microbes. While scientists take extreme precautions to sterilize spacecraft, the possibility of introducing foreign organisms to Mars or other celestial bodies can't be entirely eliminated. This raises ethical questions about whether we have the right to alter these environments before we even fully understand them. Some advocate for a conservationist approach to space exploration, arguing that we should treat celestial bodies like protected national parks on Earth, preserving them for scientific study and future generations. Others, however, argue that humanity must make use of the resources available in space to ensure our survival, especially as we face challenges like climate change and overpopulation on Earth. Finding a balance between these two perspectives will be one of the greatest ethical challenges of the space age. We must ask ourselves, is it ethical to mine the Moon for resources? Should we terraform Mars to make it more habitable for humans, even if it means altering its natural environment? These are not easy questions, and they require deep consideration as we move forward. Space mining, opportunities and risks. One of the key drivers of space exploration is the potential for space mining. Asteroids, in particular, are rich in valuable resources such as metals, water, and rare earth elements. Mining these celestial bodies could provide the materials needed for building space habitats, constructing spacecraft, and even supporting life on Earth. Space mining has the potential to be a game changer, allowing us to access resources that are becoming increasingly scarce on Earth. However, it also comes with significant risks. The extraction of resources from asteroids or the moon could cause unintended environmental consequences, both in space and on Earth. Mining operations could generate space debris, contribute to the alteration of celestial landscapes, and disrupt scientific research on the origins of our solar system. Furthermore, the legal and ethical frameworks for space mining are still underdeveloped. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, signed by most spacefaring nations, declares that no country can claim sovereignty over celestial bodies. However, the treaty does not clearly address the issue of private companies extracting and profiting from space resources. This legal gray area could lead to conflicts as nations and corporations compete for access to these resources. As we develop technologies for space mining, it will be essential to create clear regulations that ensure responsible and sustainable practices. We must avoid repeating the mistakes of Earth, where overexploitation of resources has led to environmental degradation and conflict. If space is to be our future, we must learn from our past. The moral responsibility of becoming a multi-planetary species. The idea of humanity becoming a multi-planetary species is both inspiring and daunting. As we look to settle on Mars or other worlds, we must confront the ethical implications of spreading human life beyond Earth. Some argue that it is our moral duty to preserve and expand human life, especially in the face of existential threats like climate change, pandemics, or asteroid impacts. Establishing colonies on other planets could serve as a backup for humanity, ensuring that our species survives even if disaster strikes on Earth. However, others caution that the expansion of human life into space could bring with it the same problems that have plagued us on Earth: overconsumption of resources, environmental destruction, and inequality. Colonizing space may create new frontiers for economic and political power struggles, where the benefits of space resources are not distributed equitably among all people. The question of who gets to go to space, and who benefits from its resources, is already a topic of debate. Currently, space travel is accessible only to the wealthy and powerful, but as technology advances, we must ensure that space remains a global commons, not a playground for the privileged few. As we move into this new era, we must strive for equity and justice, ensuring that the benefits of space exploration and commercialization are shared by all of humanity, not just a select group. Leaving a positive legacy in space. Ultimately, as we expand into space, we must consider the kind of legacy we want to leave. The history of exploration on Earth is filled with stories of exploitation, colonization, and environmental destruction. As we turn our gaze to the stars, we have an opportunity to do things differently. We can choose to explore space with humility and respect for the unknown. We can prioritize sustainability, ensuring that we do not irreversibly damage the environments we encounter. And we can work together as a global community to ensure that the benefits of space exploration are used to improve life on Earth, rather than perpetuate existing inequalities. In many ways, space represents a fresh start, a blank canvas where we can create a new future for humanity. The ethical and environmental challenges we face in space are immense, but they also offer us a chance to reflect on who we are as a species and how we want to shape our future. As we prepare to explore new worlds, we must remember that our actions in space will have lasting consequences. By approaching space exploration with responsibility, foresight, and a commitment to sustainability, we can leave behind a legacy that future generations will be proud of. Chapter 10: The Search for Long-Term Habitation, Self-Sustaining Ecosystems in Space. The idea of living far from Earth, not just for weeks or months but permanently, is no longer just the stuff of science fiction. As humanity prepares to expand its presence in space, one of the greatest challenges we face is how to create habitats that can sustain life over the long term, habitats that don't rely on constant resupply missions from Earth but are capable of producing their own air, water, food, and energy. In other words, we need self-sustaining ecosystems. Building a self-sustaining habitat in space is one of the most ambitious goals of space exploration. On Earth, we benefit from complex natural systems that produce everything we need to survive. Our atmosphere, oceans, and plant life work together to create a balance that supports life. Replicating even a fraction of this balance in the harsh environment of space is a monumental task, but it's one we must achieve if we are to establish long-term human presence on other planets, such as Mars, or on space stations orbiting far from Earth. Creating a closed-loop system. At the heart of long-term space habitats is the concept of a closed-loop system, where nothing is wasted and resources are constantly recycled. In such a system, air, water, food, and even waste are continuously cycled through the habitat, ensuring that life can be sustained without the need for external inputs. Water, for example, is one of the most precious resources in space. On Earth, we rarely think about where our water comes from, but in space, every drop counts. Space habitats must include systems that capture and recycle water from all sources. This means purifying sweat, urine, and even the moisture in the air to ensure a continuous supply of clean water. We've already seen this technology in use on the International Space Station (ISS), where advanced filtration systems allow astronauts to drink water that has been recycled multiple times. The same is true for air. Astronauts on long missions need a reliable supply of oxygen to breathe, and this oxygen must be continuously replenished. In a self-sustaining habitat, oxygen can be produced by splitting water molecules through electrolysis, creating both oxygen for breathing and hydrogen, which can be used as fuel. Carbon dioxide exhaled by the crew is then removed from the air and either vented or, in more advanced systems, converted back into oxygen through chemical processes or with the help of plants. But it's not just about air and water. Food production is another critical component of a self-sustaining ecosystem. Currently, space missions rely on prepackaged meals sent from Earth, but this won't be practical for long-term habitats. The next step is to grow food in space, creating a sustainable source of nutrition that doesn't depend on shipments from Earth. This is where the idea of space farming comes into play. Space farming, growing food beyond Earth. Growing food in space is a complex challenge, but it's one that researchers are already making significant progress on. For years, experiments on the ISS have tested how plants grow in microgravity, with astronauts successfully cultivating crops like lettuce, radishes, and wheat. These experiments have shown that it's possible to grow food in space, but the process still needs to be optimized for long-term survival and efficiency. On Mars or the Moon, where gravity is weaker than on Earth but still present, growing food may be more straightforward than in zero-gravity environments like the ISS. However, space farming on these worlds will still require controlled environments, such as greenhouses or bioregenerative life support systems, which combine plant cultivation with air and water recycling. Plants aren't just a source of food. They play a vital role in maintaining the habitat's ecosystem by absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen through photosynthesis. In this way, plants contribute to the closed-loop system that keeps humans alive in space. Growing a diverse range of crops will be essential not only for nutrition but also for maintaining a balanced atmosphere and providing psychological benefits to the inhabitants. For space farming to be truly successful, we'll need to develop hydroponic or aeroponic systems that allow plants to grow without soil, using minimal water and nutrients. These systems are more efficient than traditional farming and can be adapted to the confined, resource-scarce environments of space habitats. In the future, entire crops could be grown aboard space stations or Martian colonies, supplying food not just for survival but for a balanced and varied diet. Energy, powering life beyond Earth. No ecosystem, especially one in space, can function without a reliable source of energy. On Earth, we rely heavily on fossil fuels, but in space, solar energy is the most practical and abundant resource. The ISS, for instance, is powered by large solar arrays that convert sunlight into electricity. Future space habitats will likely rely on even more advanced solar power systems, possibly supplemented by other sources of energy such as nuclear power for missions far from the Sun, like those planned for Mars. On the Moon, there is great potential for harvesting solar energy, particularly at the lunar poles, where certain regions are exposed to nearly continuous sunlight. Solar panels could be set up to capture this energy, powering lunar bases and creating a self-sustaining habitat. Mars presents more of a challenge due to its greater distance from the Sun and its frequent dust storms, which can block sunlight for days or weeks. For this reason, Mars habitats may need to rely on a combination of solar energy and small nuclear reactors to ensure a steady supply of power. Energy will be needed not only for maintaining life support systems but also for growing food, recycling water, and powering the various technologies that keep the habitat running. Efficient energy use will be critical, as there will be no room for waste in a self-sustaining space habitat. Psychological sustainability, the human factor. While the technical challenges of creating self-sustaining ecosystems in space are immense, the psychological aspects of long-term space habitation are equally important. Living in a confined, isolated environment far from Earth can take a toll on mental health. That's why any long-term habitat must also consider the psychological well-being of its inhabitants. Space stations like the ISS have already given us insights into the mental and emotional challenges of living in space for extended periods. Astronauts on the ISS spend months at a time in a small, enclosed space, with limited contact with family and friends. The isolation, confinement, and lack of natural environments can lead to stress, anxiety, and depression. To address these issues, future space habitats will need to incorporate elements that provide comfort, relaxation, and a sense of connection to Earth. This could include green spaces where inhabitants can tend to plants and enjoy the sight of growing life, as well as virtual reality systems that allow people to experience the sights and sounds of Earth, providing a temporary escape from the harsh reality of space. In addition, having a structured routine and regular social interactions will be critical for maintaining morale. Long-term space inhabitants will need opportunities to exercise, engage in recreational activities, and celebrate milestones or personal achievements to foster a sense of normalcy. The road ahead, building a self-sustaining future. The quest to create self-sustaining ecosystems in space is not just about surviving, it's about thriving. As humanity moves beyond Earth, we'll need to develop habitats that allow us to live comfortably, productively, and healthily for years at a time. This will require advancements in technology, biology, and psychology, as well as a deep understanding of how to balance the needs of the individual with the limitations of space. While we're still in the early stages of this journey, the progress we've made so far is encouraging. From the water recycling systems on the ISS to the first experiments in space farming, we are slowly building the foundation for a future where humans can live independently of Earth. And as we look toward Mars, the Moon, and beyond, the development of these self-sustaining ecosystems will be the key to unlocking the next chapter of human exploration. In the end, building a self-sustaining habitat in space is about more than just science and technology. It's about ensuring the survival of our species in the most extreme environments imaginable. It's about proving that we have the ingenuity, resilience, and determination to adapt to life beyond our home planet. And in doing so, we will not only expand our horizons but also deepen our understanding of what it means to be human. Conclusion: humanity's path to becoming a multi-planetary species. As we stand on the brink of a new era in human history, the possibilities of living and thriving beyond Earth are closer than ever. The journey from the first tentative steps in space exploration to the bold visions of space stations, lunar bases, and Mars colonies reflects humanity's relentless drive to explore the unknown. It's a journey fueled by curiosity, innovation, and the desire to secure our future in an unpredictable universe. But this path forward isn't without its challenges. The harsh reality of space demands not just technological breakthroughs, but also a profound reconsideration of how we live and interact with our environment. As we push beyond Earth, we are tasked with answering critical questions about sustainability, ethics, and the long-term consequences of our actions. What does it mean to build a new home on another world? How do we ensure that the mistakes of Earth, environmental degradation, resource exploitation, and inequality aren't repeated in space? The process of becoming a multi-planetary species will require us to blend cutting-edge technology with deep philosophical reflection. It will ask us to rethink not just how we survive, but how we live, how we build communities, and how we create environments that are not only functional but also nurturing. This balance between technology and humanity will be essential if we are to thrive in space. The role of space stations and habitats. Space stations and habitats are the first stepping stones in this grand adventure. They have taught us invaluable lessons about living in the most hostile environments imaginable. Through them, we've learned how to recycle resources, manage life support systems, and cope with the psychological challenges of isolation and confinement. These structures represent the bridge between our earthbound existence and the future we hope to build on other worlds. But they are also more than that. Space stations, particularly the International Space Station (ISS), symbolize global cooperation, where nations and individuals come together to pursue knowledge and exploration beyond borders. This spirit of collaboration will be crucial as we venture deeper into space. The vastness of space is too great for any single country or company to conquer alone. Humanity's success in becoming a multi-planetary species will depend on our ability to work together, sharing resources, knowledge, and responsibility. Mars and beyond, a bold vision. Mars, the most realistic candidate for human colonization, stands as the next great frontier. Establishing a human presence on Mars will mark a new chapter in our species' story. It will test our resilience, adaptability, and ingenuity in ways we've never experienced. The surface of Mars is unforgiving, its atmosphere too thin, its temperatures too cold, and its radiation too dangerous for humans to survive without advanced technology and systems that support long-term habitation. But with the knowledge gained from space stations and our growing understanding of how to create self-sustaining ecosystems, Mars is within our reach. Colonizing Mars will not be an easy task, but it will force us to innovate in ways that benefit life both on Earth and in space. The technologies we develop for growing food, recycling water, and managing energy on Mars will have profound implications for sustainability on our home planet as well. As we look even farther into the future, the possibilities become even more exciting. Once we have established a foothold on Mars, the next logical step will be to explore and possibly colonize other parts of our solar system, such as the moons of Jupiter or Saturn. These distant worlds, with their unique challenges and resources, will push our technological and biological limits even further. But the spirit that drives us to explore, to innovate, and to survive will guide us in these uncharted territories. A new identity for humanity. The prospect of becoming a multi-planetary species forces us to rethink our identity. For thousands of years, humans have been earthbound, shaped by the geography, climate, and ecosystems of this planet. Moving into space will change that. It will transform not only our understanding of the universe but also our understanding of ourselves. What does it mean to be human when we are no longer tied to one planet? How will our cultures, values, and societies evolve when we are spread across multiple worlds, living in environments so different from what we've known? These are profound questions, and while we don't yet have the answers, we are on the verge of discovering them. In many ways, becoming a multi-planetary species will require us to embrace a new kind of global identity, one that extends beyond national borders and even beyond Earth itself. As we begin to explore other worlds, we may come to see ourselves not just as citizens of individual countries or even as inhabitants of Earth, but as part of a species capable of expanding its horizons to the stars. Hope for the future. The challenges we face today, climate change, resource depletion, geopolitical tensions, can sometimes make the future seem uncertain. But the pursuit of space exploration offers hope. It represents humanity's ability to look beyond immediate struggles and toward a future of possibility. By expanding into space, we are not just seeking new places to live, we are seeking new ways to solve problems, to cooperate, and to thrive. Space exploration reminds us of our capacity for innovation and discovery, qualities that will be essential not only for our survival but for the flourishing of future generations. It also highlights the interconnectedness of our world. The view from space has shown us that Earth is fragile and precious, a small blue dot in the vastness of the cosmos. As we venture beyond, we carry with us the responsibility to protect this planet and ensure that space exploration serves the benefit of all humanity, not just a select few. The journey continues. Becoming a multi-planetary species is not something that will happen overnight. It will take decades, perhaps centuries of hard work, perseverance, and creativity. There will be setbacks and there will be triumphs. But the journey has already begun. With each new discovery, each new mission, and each new breakthrough, we are one step closer to building a future where humans live, work, and thrive beyond the confines of Earth. This future is not just for the scientists, engineers, and astronauts who push the boundaries of what's possible. It's for all of us. It's a future that holds the promise of exploration, innovation, and discovery for generations to come. And as we stand at the dawn of this new chapter, we can look to the stars with hope, knowing that our journey into space is just beginning. That concludes the book Space Stations and Habitats, Life Beyond Earth. From the evolution of space stations to the ethical dilemmas of space colonization, we have explored what it takes to live beyond Earth. Now the future is in our hands and the stars are waiting.